everyone. This is Big Chungus here, coming at you with another tip video on Apex. This one is going to be in regards to dropping. Now, in this video, we're going to focus on how to drop, where to look, speeds to keep, and keeping your party in mind when dropping, and situations when there are other teams going to the same location. These tips should help you last longer in each match and not have to hot drop or die once you drop. So let's get started. First thing we're going to talk about is looking behind the ship. Now, when you're looking behind the ship, you notice all the different teams and where they're falling, and you can determine where you want to drop. So that way, you're by yourself. You and your team are the only people that can have that area, and that you can loot and not have to fight over different loot. Or you land where others are already getting land, and you have to determine who gets the best loot, and then whoever wins is pretty much the person who got the best loot. It's pretty much a random drop. And you don't really want to get into that situation because then it's a matter of luck on who got the best drops on there. I personally like dropping alone in a certain in areas of the map. That way we can loot and then we can go on to go fighting other teams, and we'll be well prepared to fight them. So again, looking behind the ship is a great way to see where everyone's looking and dropping where no one else did. Second place we're going to do is avoiding the small areas of the map. Now, when I say avoid the small areas of the map, I mean don't drop with other people, with other teams in these specific locations. I've circled here on World's Edge where not to drop with other teams. Otherwise, you are definitely fighting for loot. And again, whoever gets the best loot in that area pretty much wins. So you want to avoid these specific areas when dropping with other people. Next thing I want to talk about is determining which side to land on the map, and depending on where the drop ship is. Now, if half the team has dropped at the start, try dropping at the other half of the map, like at the end. And you can determine this by using your map, finding out where the midpoint is or the middle of the destination or of the trajectory that the dropship is going, and then look and see how many people are left in the ship. If more people are left in the ship than there are that have been dropped, then you might want to drop. You might want to turn around and look somewhere to drop. Otherwise, you're going to be bombarded with so many different teams that are in that second half. For instance, say you have 7 teams that have already landed, as you see on the left. We have the 7 teams made up of about 20 players. You still have 40 players still left in the dropship to drop on the second half. Okay, so if you're dropping with the 40 players, this whole right side is going to be congested with so many different players, and there's only a few amount of places that you can land. So what you're better off doing is dropping, let's say, Trials, Lava Fissure, Landslide, this area, some other area that you can drop on the left side, because there's only 20 players that have dropped, or 7 teams, and not land over here with the 40 players or the 13 teams that'll drop in this area. Next thing I want to talk about is getting to far areas of the map. Now, a lot of people have trouble of what speed do I need to keep, at what meters do I need to be at. So what I've been trying, and it's been working very successfully, is that I have pretty much a formula depending on how far the destination is and the speeds you want to keep. So if your destination is less than 400 meters or at 400 meters, you want to be around 150 speed or above. Between 400 and 600 meters, you want to be around 140, 143 or something like that. When you get to 600, 800 meters, you want to go to 135. Now, when you dip to 135, and from the subsequent ones I tell you, you're going to be dipping to 135 or less. Once you hit those speeds, you want to jump back up to 140. So you're going to do 140, and then once it goes to 135, jump back up to 140. When it goes down to 135, jump back up to 140. A lot of people call this a dolphin move or something like that. It's just a dip. So the next one would be from 800 meters to 1,000 meters. You want to go down to 130, and then for 1,000 meters and further, it's going to be 125. And again, when you hit those 135, 130, 125, you want to go back up to like a 140 or 143. That way you can maintain your speed while getting to your destination. Even though whether you may or may not be the only person there, You want to get there as quickly as possible, but you also want to get there. You don't want to land too short. Otherwise, then you have to walk, and that's going to take longer. Next thing I'm going to talk about is staying together if another team is dropping in the same area. Now, when you're going to an area, you want to look around and see if there's anybody else dropping with you. If there are, you want to call that out, whether through mic or whether through some pings, and show your team where they're dropping. That way, your entire team knows and is aware that there is another team that is dropping, and you need to get the loot and be aware that there's another team nearby. Um, that'll be very useful for when if your team doesn't recognize that there's another team there, and they can come up and just wipe you because you didn't notice that they were around and you weren't aware of it. So that's a really good thing to look for when you're dropping with in bigger areas. Like I said before, not in small areas, but in areas where you could find more than multiple people not to go. And the last thing I want to talk about is Caustic and Wattson and finding buildings. Now, if your team consists of a Caustic or a Wattson, you may want to go to areas where there's a lot of buildings. The reason? Traps. Caustic's traps, Wattson's fences. You want to be in an area where they can deploy those and it can be effective. If you're in you're in a big open area and there's not a lot of buildings, those traps aren't going to do them much good, and you're not using them to their full potential. So big places like the Lava City or in the main downtown area, those are great places for your Caustics and your Wattsons. That way, their traps can be very effective and keeping you and your team to stay alive. So those are pretty much the things. So big thing: focus behind the ship, the look and see where everyone is dropping. Don't drop with other teams in small areas. Determining which side of the map you're on and try to drop in areas you're where there's less amount of teams. That way you can get better loot. Unless your team is well versed with each other, and then you guys can just go to where all the teams are, and then get into fighting right then and there. Getting to 5 areas of the map, depending on the speeds and the meters that how far it is, and the dolphin back up to like around 140, 143 whenever it gets to those dipping levels. Staying together if another team is dropping in the same area, and Cossack and Wattson team drop in buildings. And that's all I have for today. Thanks for watching.